All right. So I just want to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be working through in this section. We're going to be using transfer learning in TensorFlow 2.0 to classify different dog breeds. And we're going to finish off with a full-blown end-to-end multi-class classification problem. An example project. And now I've chosen to do it this way because I think the best way to learn anything is to get hands-on. And now, of course, I don't expect you to remember everything off by heart that what we cover. What's more important is thinking about the principles of what we're going to go through. So if we come back to our workflow, is to remind ourselves if we're choosing a machine learning model or working on some kind of project, what kind of data do we have? Is it structured data? Well, then we should probably choose a model that's more suited to structured data. And we should probably remind ourselves that in machine learning, we have to get our structured data into numerical form. So these are the principles that we have to think about. And the same with unstructured data. Hey, if we're working with unstructured data like images, which is what we're going to be working with, we should probably use a deep learning or transfer learning model. All right, so like a neural network. And for that, we can use TensorFlow or transfer learning with TensorFlow Hub, which is what we're going to work on in this project. And again, our machine learning model, even if it's transfer learning, still can't look at images unless they're in the form of numbers. And in our case, since we're using TensorFlow, they have to be in tensors. So these are the principles I want you to start thinking about. And now, what are we going to do? As always, when we attack a new project, is to set up our project workspace. And now, traditionally, we've gone through this route. We've had our computer, we've downloaded and installed a Miniconda, we've started a new project in a project folder, we've put some data in an environment and a Jupyter notebook in there, and then we've got our coding libraries in our environment. And now, this is what's going to blow your mind. Is Colab takes care of a lot of all of these steps for us, which is what this notebook is built in. Like this is Google Colab, but it looks like a Jupyter notebook. Now, you might be asking, why didn't we just use Colab from the start? Well, Colab is great for working on projects like what we're about to work on, but there are some times where projects that you're working on can't be used with Colab. So that's where you go through this workflow. Now, we will require a GPU, a piece of computer hardware that's really fast at doing numerical computing. So that's why we're choosing to use Colab, because it's a Jupyter notebook running on one of Google's servers, which gives us access to a free GPU. And we'll see how to set that up in a moment. What are we actually working on? Let's have a quick look. We'll go to the Kaggle dog breed identification competition. So if we look at here, what we're going to do is determine the breed of a dog in an image. So because we're working with images, it's unstructured data. And so if we have a look at this, we go to data. So if we look at our data sources, what are we going to do? We're going to download labels CSV. We're going to download all of these. So we've got test. These are some images to test on, and then some images to train on. So if you go to kaggle.com/c/dog breed identification with hyphens in there, /data, that's where we're going to get our data from. So I'm going to log in here and download the data. So I've just logged in, and now I'm going to click download all. Beautiful. So this is going to take a couple of minutes. I'll pause the video until this download's done, and then we'll see what we can do with that in a moment. Wonderful. So my download has just finished from Kaggle. That took a couple of minutes on my internet speed. Now, what I'm showing you here, downloading the data, is just one option. You could always use the Kaggle API. Now, if you click on this little question mark here, again, the website's just here. This will give you some documentation about how to use the Kaggle API, which works in Google Colab. However, I've chosen to do it this way because if you want to work on your own custom data set, like one that wasn't hosted on Kaggle, this is one way to do it. There is actually, if we search up Google Colab IO, there is an example notebook. Here we go. I'll link this in the resources section. There is an example notebook in Google Colab. And the beautiful thing about Google Colab examples, so if you Google something and go Colab, I just Googled IO, is that these are all runnable Jupyter notebooks immediately. So this is going to give us a little bit of an idea about how to load external data, because remember, machine learning is all about getting our data ready. How can we load external data from local drives, sheets, and cloud storage into our Colab notebook? So how can we get this zip folder into our Colab notebook? This demo will show us, but I'm just going to show you the way that we're going to do it. And so we're going to go to colab.research.google.com. You will need a Google account. And so we are going to just start a new Python 3 notebook. And now, again, if you want some examples, there's a whole heap here. Feel free to search them up and check them out in your own time. But we're going to start a new Python 3 notebook. Beautiful. Look at that. This is kind of similar to what we've been working with Jupyter. Now, there are a few different commands and a few different things that are slightly different to our Jupyter notebook. But the main premise of what we were doing in Jupyter, it comes over to Colab. So if we want to write code, we can go import pandas as PD, shift and enter. Or we could go numpy, import numpy as NP, shift and enter. And if we wanted to add a text cell with some markdown, we can go, this is a Colab notebook, shift and enter. See? Just like a Jupyter notebook. Now, there are a few subtle differences, and we're going to see that in the next video. So in this one, we just downloaded the data. I've got that in my downloads folder now. We've seen an example Google Colab notebook of how we can load external data into our Google Colab notebooks. And we've seen what we're working towards, this end-to-end. I've called this project Dog Vision. I like that name because we're trying to identify different dog breeds in images. But without spoiling too much, start up your own Colab notebook in Google Colab, and I'll see you in the next video.